Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sapo Saturday's Scratch Track Sessions. We got your boy ASAP Froggy, Mr. Bingus Frog.
Ribbit, y'all.
And we have quite a special in-studio guest today, Miss Victoria White.
Let me go ahead and start us off by kind of doing this little intro that we do. We are Sapo Studios. Thank you for being here with us on this beautiful Saturday. Our goal is to bring the majority of profits and ownership rights back into the hands of musicians. We operate under the umbrella of the Notorious Frog NFT project, aka Frogland. Do your own research, but get involved. We have plans to unveil a marketplace where you can buy and sell stems and do a whole lot more. But until then, we're jamming it up with artists and chatting with them about music, life, and NFTs. Today, we have a very interesting guest because usually we do more of a music-based show, and today we're shifting the arts over into actual artwork. So we have Miss Victoria White here. Welcome.
Thank you. Ribbit.
Yes,
Ribbit.
yes. We already love it.
Yeah, so we're kind of, I was telling Victoria right before we started, we're staying in the Bayou. Last week we had Troy Sawyer, who is also from New Orleans, and I guess you hail from New Orleans as well.
That's correct. I am. I've been out in LA. Well, this is my third time moving to California. My heart has drawn me here many times, but
Third time's a charm, they say.
Yep, and it's stuck. So here I am. I've been here for since 2018.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what brought you out to California initially?
Well, as the Notorious B.I.G. said, it's the weather, the women, and the weed.
Hey,
Right?
that's good. Yeah. You know what? That's why I moved out here.
That's pretty
Realize we have so much in common.
No, but I actually the longer story of it is, I had moved out here originally in 2005, 2006, and then I moved back. I moved a bunch of places, but I moved back to New Orleans, and then I was practicing law. I was a lawyer for 10 years, and I got very sick. And so I retired from practicing law, and I was just going to heal. And I said, okay, well, what does that look like to me? And I was like, the happiest I ever was and the healthiest I ever felt was living on the beach in Santa Monica, Venice, and just like getting in the water every day and surfing. And so I packed up my little car and a box of paints and my little dog, and my friend and I drove out here from New Orleans with like one suitcase of clothes. And I was like, I'm going to stay for a summer. And then I just
That summer turned into a really long summer.
to a lifetime.
A
Yes.
lifetime.
The endless summer. So yeah, so here I am. That's what it looked like.
That's awesome. And what kind of law were you practicing? My parents are actually both lawyers.
Oh wow. My legal career covered a lot of stuff, but when I became a partner, I was mostly focusing on transactional stuff. I was doing a lot of secured transactions and real estate deals and
Doesn't sound
stuff
like
that.
some stuff you miss.
It was creative in its own way, but
Yeah.
it used a different part of my brain. And
Well, I think as a creative, you find a creative way to do anything you do, right?
Right.
So you found the creative pathway for that. But no, I mean, better to follow your heart and move into the arts and something that's really more creative and fulfilling in that way.
I feel very lucky.
So once you shifted into doing that, were you primarily going into painting? Because I know I saw on your website that you're interested in paint, sculpture, all sorts of different types of art. So did you start with just paint?
No, not at all, actually. I moved out here and I said, I'm going to do something creative every day. And so it was whatever I felt like exploring, and I was not devoted to any one particular art form. So I went and bought a guitar. I was sewing. I was going to the fabric store. I was doing all kinds, collaging, anything you could think of. I was like, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do photography. I'm going to do this, do that. And I did that for a long time. And then I was like, okay, what is really the thing that lights me up the most and makes me feel most alive? And what is the thing that I feel like I can connect with people the most through that art form? And it turned out that was painting, and it was painting portraits in particular.
And I remember when we met at Beach Life Festival. And you were
epic weekend of my life. Yes.
it was amazing. And I remember you kind of told me, you touched on that idea of that you were kind of spreading yourself amongst different types of art forms to find out what your expression was and like how that related to you. And I was like, was there a moment that helped you like distinguish that art was that, other than just thinking to yourself? And I remember you were talking about there was a gentleman that had like
Yeah.
walked into the room and like,
Yeah. So there was a moment. And I was just this little lady painting paintings in my little bitty apartment on the beach in Santa Monica. And I want to, I'm not really huge into social media, but from time to time I'd post something up on my Instagram or something, and people were like, "Oh, I want you to paint this. I want you to paint that." So a friend of mine asked me to paint a painting of John Prine. I was doing musicians though. That's what I was painting portraits of. I had done one of Lil Wayne. I had done one of Notorious B.I.G. and just so she said, "Will you do one of John Prine for my brother-in-law?" And I was like, "All right." So I did a little research. And that was my thing too. I had to really like love the person. If I didn't love them, I was gonna fall in love with them. You know?
Well, John Prine's amazing.
Oh gosh. So anyway, I did this huge painting, 4 by 5 feet of John Prine for this guy that I had met a few times, but he was married to a friend of mine. So and his sister-in-law, who didn't even like ever see the painting, just sent him over to my house to see. And he walked in and he didn't know why he was even there, right? And it was just like leaning against the wall. And he walked in and he said, "Wait, what is this? Is that for me?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, Milady commissioned this painting for you as a gift." And he just started sobbing. I mean, this man loved John Prine more than anyone. And right then, like I got this feeling like, okay, this is what I should be doing. If I can have somebody cry from looking at a painting of someone they never even met,
right.
This is my superpower and this is what I should do. And I think what I shared with you is that man passed away the week of my first big art show, my big solo show in February. So I dedicated the whole show to him, and just felt, it felt very meaningful that he carried me to that.
Totally.
And
That's
gave me the
amazing.
courage. He gave me the courage and the confidence to continue on that path.
Well, and what stands out for me and what's unbelievable to me is that like you didn't almost realize that talent within yourself, that you needed that validation, but you were clearly such a distinguished artist already that it's amazing to have someone else show you by evoking that emotion how talented you truly are. That's a beautiful moment.
And like as artists, at least for me, I'm trying to connect with one person.
Mm-hmm.
And if I catch it, quite often now that I am deeply understood and connecting and touching someone else's soul with my artwork. And a lot of that is by creating some kind of remembrance of a musician that touched someone's soul so deeply. And so it's honoring that musician or that artist or that great thinker that really inspired someone and touched them, and then I can be involved in that whole connection with them.
Yeah, and it's like oh shit, I didn't realize I was on the wrong camera the whole time when you were saying that. You guys got to tell me. But at Beach Life, it was a 3-day festival, and your art was like everywhere in the little backstage area.
Yeah, like the musicians compound.
Yes, little
yeah,
not backstage, yes, but it was like the VIP area. There's a little bar, there's like couches, there's a little stage area and like people hanging out. But your art, and it's not like small pictures; they're massive, they're huge, and like I'm saying, it's a 3-day thing. And on the first day, me and the other camera guy are like walking around, and we're like, "Who's Victoria White?" I'm like, I gotta find this. I was like, these are absolutely amazing. And they were like little moments. There's like a Tony Hawk moment where he's like a little kid and you painted it on like a bunch of skateboards. And what's the quote? It says,
"I never quit. That's my only secret."
Yeah. And it's like, there's so much motivation in your art. And it's like comes from these iconic people. And once I did get the chance, I was like, that has to be the woman. She's got, you'll see on video here
Little
the
overalls
overall with
covered
all
in
the paint, and
paint.
I was like, that has to be Victoria. And so I was honored to meet you, and once you were
Thank
up on the
you.
ladder, because you had to be on a ladder to paint because they're that big. So I want people that are listening to understand how large these paintings are.
Yeah, so what I did at Beach Life, just to explain to everybody, is I hung a bunch of my large portraits of musicians and Tony Hawk and some other ones. And then I painted a live painting there of John Fogerty, which was 6 by 8 feet. And I painted it over the week.
Were you listening to Credence while you were painting it?
Well,
But
I
you-
listened to him sing. The stage was about 20 yards from where I
Oh,
was
wow.
painting,
Yeah,
and he was singing it as I was painting
Yeah.
Holy
him.
shit.
it was so.
It was
cool.
just a
It was so cool.
moment.
That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, and then I don't know if you were there. After he performed, he and his wife came and saw the painting, and they were just blown away, and his children. And it was one of the most amazing moments
That's
of my
gotta
life.
floor you.
I do remember because that's kind of when we were talking.
Oh, okay.
It was like I don't think I was there for when he came, but I was there when like the music was playing, and that's kind of like I was talking to you a little bit before that, and then we were like going deep into this conversation, and that's when I was like thinking to myself, "Damn, although she's an artist, like she's got to be on the podcast." And there was a point where it was like, he's gonna come back here soon, so like I gotta get back to work. Like you're like I don't want to cut this conversation short.
Yeah, I was like, I have to finish this
you're like,
painting or
yeah.
get it pretty close,
Yeah,
right?
like I gotta, like I appreciate everything we're talking about, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like those are all
I was
good
like, I'll
things.
tell you more when I see you next.
yeah. ASAP, as we call him around here, has that ability. He'll suck you in, and then it's like, okay, yes, we're this is great, but there are other things we're here for. We got to get going. It's like, yeah, but what about this? What
Yeah,
about
30
that?
minutes later, I was like deep in this rabbit hole telling you things I've never told anyone.
Yeah.
While standing on a ladder.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm
with a
like looking up
paintbrush in
to
my
you. Yeah,
hand.
I'm like looking up at you, like, oh, like this is like and like I'm saying, like your art was inspiring. I was like curious about who had created it for 2 days, and on the third day or second day or whatever day that was, it's just like, and I think my point is now it's that what we're doing on this show is like not only for musicians, it's for artists, and it's to talk about the journey of how you get to become an actual artist. So it's like decisions you have to make. It's moments in your life
Well,
that you have to be aware of.
I would just distinguish there. It's not about how you become an actual artist, just from the point of view that these people are already artists. They're starting out that way. It's about like realizing that journey and like sort of taking ownership over that. And
It's kind of like we were talking about with Eva Flow when I was listening to that show yesterday, because it just got put on Apple Podcasts. But
yep,
in
Apple
that-
Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast. Go and check it out.
in that sense, it's like he was talking about how do I take this from like a hobby to like actual, like, and I understand
Yes.
your point. It's like you always have been an artist, but how do you make it like your
Career
path?
Right.
Like, how do you make it like, this is who I am, this is what I do? And like that moment that you had, I think inspired me. Like I'm saying, I'm trying to tie everything together. It's like I stood there for 2 days wondering who you are. I'm one of those people that you touched my soul,
Oh, well,
right?
thank
And then
you.
it's like to be able to ask you those questions just for my own purpose as being an artist and trying to like solidify that for myself. It's like hearing stories like yours that make it make sense, and just you have to be here and you have to be doing your thing, and you just again have to be aware when the universe is telling you this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, Salvador Dali, someone said this to me recently, but Salvador Dali said it's either easy or impossible. And when you're on the right path, you just get a lot of green lights, and you're like, wow, I like this is what I should be doing, right? Like, and I've just gotten so many hits in the past few years that have been like, keep going, work very hard and have a vision of what you want, and then be very open to the opportunities and what comes at you, and that and if you hit a roadblock, don't go that way. Like don't try and resist. Willie Nelson said, life is a balance between surrender and resistance, right? And so, like,
Hmm.
there's only so much resistance and persistence that we should put into life to really get what we want, and the rest is a lot about going with the flow.
Hmm.
Willie
That's
Nelson is
interesting.
my little Buddha. I'm obsessed with him. Y'all should read all of his books.
Willie
I
Nelson's a cool guy.
I what books? I would love to read
Well,
a
he
book.
wrote a book called The Tao of Willie, which is essentially all of his life philosophy. It's beautiful. And then his autobiography, it's a long story. I read if there's an autobiography or a biography of anyone I've ever painted, I've read it. But his was the best one.
Yeah,
Hmm.
He's hysterical.
I'm a big fan of Howard Stern, and Willie Nelson went on the Howard Stern show, and during that interview, it's something I reference a lot. He talked about, and this is kind of a common concept out there. I don't know that he created this idea, but he talks about how you're most in tune with your creative self when you're in the shower or when you're driving, and it's
Mm.
because you kind of like aren't thinking about anything. It just like the water hitting you or like just driving, like you're focused on that. So it like takes your brain out of like all of the other nonsense and it allows you to just go to all of these
Mhm.
places. And he said he's written a ton of songs while just driving.
Yeah,
Interesting.
probably because you're in flow. Like you're
Hmm.
focused on something and it's not too difficult, but it requires a little bit of your attention so you can be in flow. And when you're in flow, it turns off, you get into the state of hy something hypofrontality where the voices in your head turn off. So you stop judging yourself and you stop judging everything around you and you can really get the creative inspiration and it doesn't feel difficult. Um
And
So
in taking psychology classes, sorry to cut you off, but like that was a thing that they talked about was like getting into flow, some sort of flow state every day. And that's why it's so important. So like for me, like playing music or like you art, like you writing, whatever that flow state is that you can achieve every day is so important on a mental health level. I think that that's so
It's
important.
so important, and I think that people see it in me, and they often say, I want that. You seem so content and so zen, and it's because I can get into my flow very easily every day. I have the time and the space set up to just do it every day. And if everyone had that, and then if you can make whatever puts you in flow your life purpose,
Hmm.
in Japan they call it your ikigai when you're what you love to do, what you can get paid for, what you're good at, and what the world needs all
Hmm.
intersect. And when you have that, you have found your life purpose and then you can get in flow into it while you're doing it. And uh, that's what everybody's actually trying to achieve in life, I think.
Hmm.
We think we want
love that.
status or money or no, we just want this serenity that can come from being in flow.
Hmm. That's so wild. And like I was like thinking about, and like maybe this is gonna go like too far out of the box, but I was talking about like the constructs of money, and it's like you're saying, people think that what we're trying to achieve in life is money, but that is the most important aspect. Is what you're talking about is achieving flow and what the world needs, and
Well, and that's, I think, kind of, and this is something I've touched on the show before. There are a lot of successful people that have said, do what you love and the money will follow. And that's kind of about tapping into that flow, right? It's like once you find that place where you have that serenity, where you are in tune with everything that's coming your way and willing to accept that, that's when all of that success will come.
Yeah, and the Stoic, I forget what Stoic philosopher said that what we think we want is luxury, but what we really want is calm and peace. And those are very, very different things because
hmm,
you can have all the luxurious things in the world, but if it's very hectic and you don't have anything that's bringing you calm and serenity in your life, then you're still going to be unhappy.
Yeah, and that
That'd be
reminds me of
fun.
the show Succession, actually.
I haven't seen it.
Check it out.
You're
Awesome
like, I've been
show.
painting and surfing. I don't mind
Yeah.
TV.
I
Everyone
don't even
should.
own a TV.
Hey, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Everyone should go ahead and check out victoriawhitecreates.com so that you can see some of Victoria's artwork. You talked about Salvador Dali. I was looking through your stuff, and of all of the stuff that you had on the site, I was like, I want that Salvador Dali painting.
Oh,
And the quote on it was, "Take me, I am the drug." And it was just such a cool image, and I loved it.
he's a cool cat.
Yeah, very cool.
He also said, okay, then that I'm gonna bring you a candle that I made. I brought you a
Oh,
different one, but so I incorporate a lot of quotes and words into my artwork, and I put them either in writing on a acrylic iridescent sheet on top of the oil painting, or I do it in neon lights. And so, yeah, Dali, and I also make smaller objects. So I make these little candles that say a quote, and they're called like legend, prayer, devotional candles. And the one that I made for Dali says, "God is just another artist like me."
Hmm.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I was listening to the John Lennon song "God" yesterday,
Uh,
which I don't know if you know that song, but it's quite a powerful song.
Okay, I'm gonna have to tune in. Maybe I've heard it before. It's not coming to mind.
Yeah, I mean it's just basically about him saying that he doesn't believe in anything but himself and the world ahead of him with his wife Yoko, and it's I don't know, it's a crazy cool song. It's definitely something to
I'm
check out.
definitely gonna check it out.
But okay, so with relation to your artwork, it's absolutely gorgeous stuff. Do you have
Thank you.
any actual training in terms of going to school for that or going into some sort of a program, or is it all just, this is your God-given talent?
Well, I did my undergrad in philosophy.
Okay.
And I primarily identify as a philosopher before I am an artist. And whatever art I make, I will be expressing my philosophy and the philosophy of other great thinkers and artists that resonate with me. And then I went to law school, so they didn't teach us a lot of painting in law
No,
school.
no.
Um, and then I got divorced, and I was like, okay, after when I got divorced, I was practicing law, but I was like, I'm gonna invest in myself a little. And so I was living in New Orleans in a condo by myself with my dog, and I was like, I don't have time. I was a law partner at a big firm. I didn't have time to go to an art class, right? But I was like, I'm gonna call the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts, and I'm going to ask them if they just have a guy that can come to my house and teach me one night a week. So Diego Larguia, who's a famous artist in and of his own right now, came to my house like one night a week, and for maybe a year. Okay, I paid the guy $100, and he taught me how to oil paint in about 30 minutes. Okay, after that, he sat in my living room and watched me paint, played with my dog a lot, and told me I was doing a good job and encouraged me. And that is sometimes all that we need
Mhm.
is to build up the confidence to overcome our fear. I had a lot of fear about putting paint on the canvas and messing it up, right?
Right.
Wasting money, wasting paint. We have all these little fears that we don't even identify. And so he sat back there and he's like, "You're doing a great job. You're doing good. That looks really good. Maybe move that eye a little to the left." So he kind of very informally taught me. And then I took one class at the New Orleans Academy of Fine Arts on like life drawing, where you go, someone sits nude and you paint the architecture of the body, and you draw it. And that was actually taught by an architect that lived in New Orleans. Very interesting. And so I learned like very basic fundamentals from those two amazing teachers, and then I just kind of ran with it after that, and practice, 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 practice.
So, something that I'm wondering, we have a business partner who's an artist, and he recently spoke to us about how when he was training in art school, they had a bunch of sessions where they would bring in someone that they would paint nude, like you're talking about, and there's a lot of your artwork that's very informed by the person that you're painting, and you have a quote of theirs, and I think you kind of suggested that you get very in tune with who that person is. You have to love them to want to paint them, and things of that nature. Our business partner is a very eccentric guy. Shout out to Dan. And Dan was telling us, he's like, yeah, I'd be standing there, I'd be chatting up the artist, and they'd get mad at me because the teacher would say, you're not supposed to be talking to the artist, or not the artist, the
Subject.
subject. And so do you think that it would have changed the way that you painted those subjects had you a chance to connect with them? Because I know that you're not supposed to have that connection with the subject.
Um, it's so interesting that you say that. I'm having a show next week, and I made this huge poster that I'm gonna put up at the show. And it's a quote of a painter, Henry Fontaine Lafleur, and he said, "One paints people like flowers in a vase, happy to depict the exterior just as it is. But what of the inner life? The soul is like music, and a painter can try and make the music of the soul heard through the portrait. And so, absolutely, I think
I love that quote.
what I'm trying to do is express the soul of the person that I'm painting as much as possible. So I immerse myself in them. Like when I was painting Kurt Cobain, I'm watching all the documentaries, I'm listening to all the biographies and the books about him on my Audible while I'm painting, I listen to his music. So I get completely immersed. One of my friends told me that I was the method actor of painting, because
Yeah,
I
that's
just get
cool.
obsessed with the
That's
person.
cool.
Yeah. And so to be able to actually talk to these people, I get as close to talking to them as I can. And John Fogerty, I freaking talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So take us through your process a little bit more. I want to know, beyond doing all of that immersive stuff, do you have stuff that like rituals, so to speak, that every time that you paint, these are things that you do? There's like a set of candles that you light, or there's there, you came in with great overalls today that are covered in all sorts of paint that are so cool and so indicative of being an artist, and I love them. But like, do you
I
have
wear
a
these every day. These are my uniform.
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what you
But
were wearing when I met you.
but yeah,
I
so
have 20 pairs.
to that end, like, do you have a uniform that you paint in, and stuff like that? Like, what are your things that like are your staples of creating?
Well, uh, I did the Artist Way. I don't know if y'all have done this program by Julia Cameron, but
I have not.
okay. Well, I highly recommend it to anyone trying to find their artistic expression, the artist way. And she's written several books. I'm currently reading Vein of Gold, which is another book that she wrote. But in these books, she talks about the importance of writing what she calls her morning pages, right? So I would say that, and what she says is write 3 pages in your journal every morning right when you wake up.
Hmm.
And I would say that that is the single most important thing that I do
Interesting.
is write in my journal right when I wake up. Leo Tolstoy said that our most creative inspiration comes right when we wake up, when we're not quite awake yet, and so if you can jot all that down and just get it all that those things that you might forget out of your system, and all the emotions and baggage of your day and your dreams and all of that onto the page. I do that every day, and then I set an intention for the day, and I focus on I write down what's the best thing that happened to me yesterday and what would make today amazing. And I set a goal, and what kind of mood I would like for my day, whether I want to feel enthusiastic or I want to feel calm or organized or whatever it is. So, and in that, I write down a lot about who I'm feeling inspired about painting. And during that time, sometimes I'll look at images of them and read things that they've read and transcribe whatever is moving me. So I should have brought one of my journals, but it has all these quotes of musicians and great thinkers all written out in pretty colors. And so I would say that that is the single most important thing that I do. And then I experiment and explore a lot, like I'm always just doing, I have all my projects, my big art that I'm making, but it's very important that you not take yourself too seriously and you give yourself a lot of free time. Artists need time doing nothing, where there's nothing on the schedule. And, when I was getting ready for Beach Life, I had a lot of big pieces that I wanted to make. I did make this huge 8-foot painting of Bob Marley because the
That's what I
Whalers
knew
were
you were going to
playing.
say, Bob Marley.
Yeah, and
I knew it.
I got to meet all the Whalers, and I gave them
I have a
little print.
picture on my phone of you with all of them right in front of that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
painting those big paintings is a lot of physical labor and time, right? But, my friend called me like 2 days before I had to have that done and get it to the framer. And he said, "What are you doing?" I was like, my orthodontist, like years ago, gave me this impression, this weird like mold of my own teeth. And I'm sitting here and I got these glitter pens and I'm making it into a grill. And I just want to see what I would look like if I had a grill. He's like, "Really? That's what you're doing this afternoon? Seems like you're kind of busy getting ready for all the things." And I was like, "Yeah, but I need like an hour just to like see what this is going to look like with a grill on it with lots of purple glitter and diamonds." So, allowing myself that free time to explore is super important. To unplanned time is super, that I'm not looking at my phone, that I'm like creating weird shit is just super important to my process, I think.
And then in terms of just to bring it back to like physical items, are there any like you set candles up or you always, do this or that in this place? Is there like you always paint in the same place or do you like to paint in a lot of different places?
Oh no, I'm usually painting in my studio, which is y'all are gonna love this. Oh, I don't know if I told you this. All right. So in 2020, I was looking to move because I was painting a lot and I was like, this is what I'm gonna be doing with my time. I was living in a 450 square foot apartment. I was like, this doesn't work. I was like taping paintings on paper to the wall and then rolling them up and putting them under my bed. So when I first moved out here, I was riding my bike around. I'm about to tell everybody where I live. Okay. And
You don't have to get out the address,
Okay, well, I'm about to tell people, so you could Google this. Okay, so everybody knows. Don't come stalk me.
Yeah.
Okay. So
please don't.
I rode my bike down this one street and I was like, I need to live on this street. This is the cutest street in all of Los Angeles. It was these little white picket fences and these craftsman houses. So I told everybody for 2 years, I was like, well, I'm going to move to so-and-so Avenue. It's the cutest street. One way, 1 block long, 20 houses on it. What are the chances, right?
Mhm.
So put it out into the universe and be amazed if you keep thinking about it. You can draw it into your life. So my friend sends me this listing on the street. So it's a 3-bedroom house. I'm like, perfect. Hopefully it'll have space for my studio, right? So I go look at it and it's like totally wrong. Totally wrong. There's like the rooms are so small. There's nowhere to put my 8-foot paintings. I was so bummed out. And so the landlord was like, well, I got a 1-bedroom in the back if you want to check it out. And I was like, nah. It was like a back house, right? And I was like, there's no way that's going to work for me. And he's like, well, you're standing right here. We have to take 10 steps that way. Come check it out. And I was like, fine. He's like, maybe you know somebody who wants to live there. So we go back there and it was a garage with a garage apartment on top. And so he opens this big garage door and peeks his head in and he's talking to his kid. He was living in the house at the time and he was moving out. So and I saw and I was like, what's this room? This garage room? And he's like, oh, this is just, we're going to use this for storage. It's our kids' homeschool right now because it was COVID and kids weren't going to school. So he and his friends were in there learning. So I looked in there, I was like, that is 650 square feet of studio space is what I'm thinking to myself.
Right.
And I was like, that's awesome. Okay. So we walk up the stairs and he's like, so I don't know if you've heard of Jim Morrison, but he lived here. And I was like, he turns his head. I'm like, what guy?
Yeah, no big deal. Just says it super casually.
Yeah. And he's like, do you know who that is? I think he thought I was too young to like know who that was. So I was like, oh, really?
For those of you that don't know who Jim Morrison is, he's the lead singer of The Doors. And if you don't know who The Doors are, shame on you.
Yeah.
Go check out The Doors.
Hang on.
Stop listening.
Yes.
To our show.
No, don't stop listening, but go start listening to The Doors.
So I went and looked at the apartment and I was like, I can make this cute, right? But what the clutch part was this huge studio space downstairs. So I acted like I wasn't totally interested. I hope he doesn't listen to this, but I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm going to move into Jim Morrison's apartment. So I did a lot of research though. And Ray Manzarek and his girlfriend had been living in that apartment when he had been in film school with Jim Morrison. So Ray is walking down the Venice boardwalk one day and he runs into Jim Morrison, who had been living on a rooftop in Venice eating avocados from the avocado tree and writing poetry. And what Jim said to Ray was, Ray, I've been writing all this poetry and I see myself performing it live on stage. And Ray said, well, I got this band, Ray and the Ravens. You should just come be the lead singer for our band. So Jim comes back to the apartment with Ray and he moves in. He moves into my bedroom, and then Ray and his girlfriend move into the living room. Okay. And in my apartment, in this very weird way, there were two separate front doors next to each other. Now, my landlord removed one of the doors. So you can see there's a hole where a door was, where there's now a wall. But when they were sitting in the living room of my apartment, they said, what are we going to, I did a lot of research on this. Okay. I read all the books and watched all the videos. They said, what are we going to name our band? And they looked over at the doors. This happened where I live right now. And I'll tell y'all another weird thing. Okay. This started happening when I moved in this place.
So funny.
I go to bed at night. I'm sleeping in Jim Morrison's bedroom every night now. And I go to bed and it's dead silent. Very, very often, I hear music and there's no music playing. It's very weird. But I think it's Jim, like his spirit
is it
playing.
Doors music, like Riders on the Storm?
It's all different music. And it's like
That's
weird
wild.
music. And I think it's him just messing with me.
That's wild.
And I'm like, I feel like the first like several weeks, I was like, I feel like I'm going crazy. I would get up and look around my house to see where this music was coming from. It's coming from my bedroom, but there was no speaker. It still happens. So I don't know. Y'all call me crazy, but Jim Morrison is with me in there. And then I did a huge portrait of him. Super cool.
That's
After
amazing.
seeing your
That's
art, I'm
amazing.
not going to call you crazy because it's unbelievable artwork and you're super talented and in tune and your philosophy is amazing. So I think you're far from crazy. But
This
yeah,
is my experience. I'm just conveying it to y'all.
That's
listen,
amazing.
It's
It's amazing.
unbelievable. I do want to reset the room for new people that have joined us. Got to do this spiel when you're doing the radio thing. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you've been here the entire time, we are Sapo Studios. Our goal is to bring the majority of profits and ownership rights back into the hands of musicians. We operate under the umbrella of the Notorious Frog NFT project, aka Frogland. Do your own research, but get involved. We have plans to unveil a marketplace where you can buy and sell stems and do a whole lot more. But until then, we're jamming it up with artists and chatting with them about music, life, and NFTs. Today we have Victoria White in studio, who, unlike our usual artists, is an actual painter, sculptor, philosopher, and branches into those types of arts as opposed to music. You should all go and check out her website, victoriawhitecreates.com. You can commission her to do some artwork if you'd like, and if she's keen on what you're wanting her to paint, then maybe you'll be lucky enough to get her. And I do want to ask you, Victoria, about this nonprofit, Invisible Arts.
Indivisible Arts, yes.
Indivisible Arts.
So
Okay.
about a
Yeah.
year, one of my personal goals was always to teach children art. And I was like, how's that going to look? I'm not going to go get an education degree. I've got a lot of degrees that are not useful to me right now. So anyway, I did this huge surfboard painting, these 3 surfboards of Kelly Slater for this fundraiser that my friend was involved in. I was like, sure, I'll paint a surfboard for you, whatever. It wasn't my main jam at the time. Well, it turned into this huge thing. And
Is that the one with the sculpture on it?
that's another one I
'Cause
did.
that
That's
one
the
is so
second one, the
cool.
Mickey
Yeah,
Dora one.
that
Yeah.
one's so
So anyway, through that fundraiser that I got involved in, because I did this portrait of Kelly Slater for the fundraiser, a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, they're displaying that artwork at this school where I've been teaching this after school program called Indivisible Arts. I volunteer there. We teach art and consciousness to children. And I was like, that sounds like my jam. Let me go check this out. So he's like, come volunteer with me next Wednesday. And so I went down there and I was just like, what the heck is this? It is like just so next level of teaching like quantum physics to 7-year-olds and teaching them how to express themselves creatively in a very free way. So we do so then after that, I went up to the owner of this school, Raphael McMaster, and I was like, hey, you don't know me, but I am your new business partner and I'm totally in on this. And he's like, huh? And I was like, I'm also an artist. Check out my art. He's like, okay, you have my attention. So anyway, I've been working with him for a little over a year now, teaching kids essentially how to be good human beings.
It's wonderful.
Yeah,
That's
we do
amazing.
that for half an hour, and then they get an hour in the creative lab where they get paired with one volunteer and they get to do whatever they want creatively. We have a whole music studio with every instrument. We have spray painting, resin, virtual arts, like you know how you can do AI and all kind of cool stuff. Whatever they want to do, sculpture, clay, photography, anything they can do. And it's a lot like it's essentially artist way for 7, 8, 9, 10 year olds.
That's amazing.
It is so spectacular.
How,
And so
how do you volunteer?
I teach.
Or like, how would I volunteer?
Oh, you tell me and I will bring you there. Or reach out to me.
That'd be
Yeah.
so cool.
Oh, it
I would
is
do like
so
the
cool.
music thing or like
Oh, yeah.
videography, like how
Yeah, we do a lot of
Yeah.
videography. Yeah. And then
awesome.
I got involved in teaching. So that program is an after school program where kids can pay, like their parents can pay, or
Indivisible arts.
indivisible arts, or we have scholarship programs for kids that their parents can't necessarily afford it. But then Raphael and he invited me to join this program where he's bringing indivisible arts into Da Vinci Rise High School, which is a high school that is catered towards kids that have had a rough time.
Where is the high school?
That's in Hawthorne. And so a lot of the children that are in the high school have either been involved in the foster care system or the criminal justice system. And so it's just they have a hard time, right? They're having a harder time in life, and being in a typical high school is not conducive to them becoming a well-developed human being. So this school is an alternative learning program. And so what Raphael and I did is we kind of adjusted our curriculum to address 14 to 18-year-olds, and we brought it to their school, and we have volunteers come there during the classroom portion. We teach a lesson that is more like talking to you guys, like how can you incorporate acceptance into your life to bring serenity into your life. So we teach them about things like that, and then we give them an hour of creative time where we have a whole music studio that's like this mini house that they go into, and they rap and they do cool stuff and they express themselves, or they make jewelry, or they spray paint a wall. It's super, super cool. And we made a lot of clothing with them. It was so fun. I did a lot of that this year. So that has been so rewarding to me we had the graduation last Wednesday. And I mean, it brought me to tears just to see these kids that I know. They're probably the first kid in their family, if they have a family, to graduate from high school, or,
Amazing.
and just to see how far, some of the kids, the first day I walked in there, they were saying, I almost committed suicide last week. And, I lost my meds, my psych meds, and I don't have mom or dad to help me get the prescription again. And I feel like I'm going crazy. I was like, wow, this is a lot. One lady's telling me about her sexual assault that she went through. I could go on and on about the trauma that these kids have been through. And that was in September. And fast forward to June of this month, the light and the brightness and the openness and the hope that I see in these kids' faces and in their eyes now, because we've been bringing this wisdom to them every week, week after week, and being a consistent figure in their life when they didn't have one. What a privilege. What an honor.
That must feel so fulfilling. That's unbelievable.
And it's also like, it fills your cup as an artist too. It almost like gives you something to talk about as well. Like it gives you a perspective on, how lucky we are, and if we're like having this internal struggle of like expression and being an artist, like that's a luxury.
Right.
Way,
Yeah.
right?
And,
It's like,
Basquiat, I love Basquiat. He's one of my favorite artists, and he was a musician as well, and he said it's not who you think you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. And and
Hmm.
once we can expand our concept of what we are capable of, the sky is the limit, right? Whatever we want, we can create. And that's what I'm teaching these kids, because they have a very limited idea of what they are capable of. They believe, when I talk to them, I'm like, what do you really want? I talked to
Hmm.
this kid this week who's graduating, and I was like, where you work? What are you doing this summer? He's like, oh, I'm working at this fast food restaurant. I was like, if you could have any job, what would it be? And he's like, I would really like to be a photographer, like a sports photographer. And I was
Hmm.
like, all right, well, let's make that happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but like, first thing I'm going to do, I know a photographer. You just meet with him and you ask him how he became a
Yeah.
photographer. Because I'm sure he worked at a fast food joint at some point in
Mhm.
his lifetime too, And so it's just about taking all the knowledge and power that I've gotten from getting to know myself and communicating it to other people to inspire them and helping
Totally.
them live up to their potential is my greatest privilege.
And I like that's why I resonated with you, because like I feel like I'm on this journey, and like I need to hear things like that from people, and that's why I felt like you needed to be on our shows, because other artists need to hear that.
Yeah.
Other artists need to hear how passionately you speak about that, and like how it's not impossible. I think that's the biggest thing. And like that quote that Basquiat said, it's like it's the things that we think we're not. And
Mhm.
that's like the thing to shed as an artist. Like
Yeah.
you can't have that
Yeah, and we need to be very careful about the words we choose to use. Before I was a
to ourselves.
yes, and
Yes, our self-talk.
after I had this period of great insecurity when I got very sick and I wasn't working at all. And so I didn't have any identity, right? I was just like living, and I stripped down. I wasn't a wife anymore. Uh I was a stepmother to these children, and that ended, right? And I wasn't a lawyer anymore, right? Like everything that I identified myself with had been taken away, which was very traumatic for me and scary, and it made me feel very afraid. But it was also this blank slate that I was given in my life, and I was like, well, what am I going to be? And so I explored it, right? I was doing nothing. I just told people I was retired for a little while. Like, it was a very hard thing to explain. And then I started saying, well, I'm a painter. And I said it, and I wasn't a professional painter at the time, but I said, I'm a painter. This is what I do. I'm a painter. I'm a painter. I'm a painter. And then I said it enough times, and it is beyond my wildest dreams, my reality. And so we need to be very careful about the words that we say to ourselves and the words that we choose to say.
Absolutely. And speaking of words, I need a book of just all of your favorite quotes, because every quote that you've said today has been something that's just so awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like
um,
seriously, like just and I think that probably plays into like your philosophy background,
yes,
And like
absolutely.
I at one point in my life I thought I wanted to like study that or like read books. So if you have any recommendations of like what books I should read from like a
A
philosophical
good
standpoint.
starter course, just to like get a taste of everything that I care about, is a book called Great Thinkers.
Great thinkers.
Yeah. And it just
Here,
gives
write
you a
that
little
down for me here.
synopsis of different thinkers and philosophers and
Thank
what
you.
their theories were.
See, I love that,
And
and
Ryan Holiday, have you read Ryan Holiday?
mm-mm.
Ugh, he goes so deep into all the Stoic philosophers, and I love his work. He's a amazing author. Yeah.
I love that we've had so many artists on, of usually musicians, like I said, but now you as well, that are so interested in helping others. It's a wonderful thing, especially at a time where it feels like there's such a divide between people and no one wants to help anyone. But then you see these beautiful shining lights along the way that do exist, and it's a marvelous thing. We've heard about the nonprofit Indivisible Arts that you're involved in. We heard Troy Sawyer is involved in a nonprofit that is majorly about young women playing trumpet and bringing music to their lives
Mhm.
in New Orleans. I was just editing the episode with Louis Rhymes, and he's an educator in the physical education, and just
In New
all of
York.
these, yeah, in New York, and all of these different artists helping children and the next generation. It gives hope, and it's really awesome. And
Well, it is my honor. It is my duty. You know, it is all of our duty to, once we heal ourselves, to help other go out and help others heal
Mhm.
as well. You know, that is my duty.
Well, and I think that's you make a good point there. Once we heal ourselves, and I think that's the issue is that so many people are unhealed, and that's why they don't want to help anyone else because they don't even know how to help themselves.
Yeah.
That's the
And
hard part.
that is the hard part.
That's
Yeah,
probably the hardest part is like getting to the point of like admitting like, hey, I need help, or like, hey, I need to. And it's like I've had conversations with a couple of my close friends about that recently, where it's like, and I told him like, right now it's only about you taking care of yourself, because like you can't move to the next stage of your life with all the things you're saying you want to do, and like all this knowledge you have of being a producer and a professional, and he's unhealed and he needs to like solely focus on that. So like I think that that's a big thing to take away from this conversation is it's okay to be selfish sometimes. It's okay to go get help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to self-reflect. It's okay to wake up in the morning and write in your journal every day. And I think I should start doing that, because that moment you're talking about, like where you're kind of asleep, kind of awake, I have amazing ideas in that moment, but then like I forget them and they're gone.
Yeah.
And I,
I, yeah, and I think a big part of healing and what we teach our children actually in our courses is connection. And we teach four types of connection, but one is connection to your higher power, right? Whatever that is for you, just realize that you are not in control of this world, right? And so connecting to your higher power, connecting to your own soul. And I think both of those things are achieved through the journal writing or meditation and playing music, right?
mm-hmm,
Or painting, creating art of anything, because it's just the divine flowing through us. And then we talk about connecting to others through service, and there's so much healing when we can. And service doesn't have to be this formal thing where you go like me and volunteer, right?
mm-hmm.
Service can be like saying to your friend or a random person on the street, how you doing today, you know? And
Right.
sometimes that's all somebody needed to change their day. And so through connection, we learn that our personal struggle and what is most personal is actually universal, that we are
Mm-hmm.
all suffering and we're all struggling. And once we can connect with someone and hear about their suffering and lift their burden from them, it makes our burden seem less,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like less heavy, and that we feel understood. And that is that is what everyone is yearning for, to feel like they matter and to feel understood. It's why we create art and music, to express ourselves. And
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that sense of connection you're talking about. I feel like it's more and more a thing that people have said that I've heard that I've felt that we're all living the same life and we don't realize it. And it's not exactly the same life, obviously, but there are just so many little things that we've all experienced, that we've all done, that we've all felt that in that moment you feel like, oh, who does this? This is crazy. Nobody does this.
You feel alone.
Everybody
Yeah.
does this.
Yeah.
Everybody does this is
Right.
who does this. So yeah,
It's 1 o'clock.
there's a lot of connection to be had out there. You just have to embrace it,
yeah,
and you have to be open to it.
yeah, Brian Jones, who I studied all of the 27 Club, and I'm trying to paint
Mm-hmm.
them all eventually. He's a tough one because a lot of people don't know who he is, but I have a lot of compassion for this man. He was a really troubled soul, and a genius, a true genius. And if for those of people who don't know, he founded the Rolling Stones, right?
Hmm.
So he is the creator of the Rolling Stones. That's a huge deal for
Yeah.
like him to have his life to have ended so soon. And you know, mental illness and mental health is a huge I was thinking about this on my way here, but like mental health is like a huge reason why so many musicians are no longer with us, right? Like,
Right.
And all of them taken from us at the age of 27.
right. And so one thing that Brian Jones said was that if we can figure out how to cure people's mental health struggles, we will likely be able to, and this is a long time ago, he said this, we will be able to cure all physical ailments as well, because it's
Mm.
all this deep-rooted mental health issue.
Hmm.
I think it was a very revolutionary thing that he said at the time, but that is my crusade in teaching these children, is to give them the tools to heal their suffering that is going on in their mind and in the isolation of being lost in your mind.
Yeah, and I mean, not to be too dark, cynical, or conspiracy theorist-esque, but I mean, there's almost this sense of I don't know whether it's the government or the powers that be or what, but they don't, we have the power to do way more healing than we do, but big pharma and whatever, they don't want the world to heal because it continues that flow
To
of
put
money
money into their
into,
pockets.
yeah.
Yeah, and Joe Dispenza, I mean, I don't know how a lot of the concepts that we teach our kids are you know, Joe Dispenza theory boiled down, right, into something very, very simple. And Joe Dispenza said, Maria Sabina, the high priestess from Mexico of like the sacred mushrooms, she said, everything we need to heal ourselves is within us. We are the cure, right? We are the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
It is within us. And so I'm getting really deep right
No,
now,
but,
but yeah.
I'm right there with you, and it's like there's TED Talks that I've heard where some psychologists talk about, you know, the magic mushroom being the key for our own self to unlock the door in our mind that's closed. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, but the psychologist is just the guide to like lead the person to find their own, because like she said, they have the answers within them, and I
Mm-hmm.
believe that too. It's like, I think it's just difficult to, and that may be like societal constructs of how we, and especially from like a male's perspective, like admitting that you're feeling sad or that you're hurting or like,
Mm-hmm.
like, or that you want to cry, or like, it's like men have been told to be, oh, you have to be tough and you have to, like, you can't be emotional and you shouldn't be, face your feelings. And like, I think that that's just such an important aspect at this time. And more people are starting to realize it, I think, with the mental health awareness and whatnot. But like, I think we still have a long way to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, it's even like things like this, our podcast isn't very big, but like, this will live somewhere for people to hear and like listen to in a year from now or whatever. And if it's even one person that hears that and says, you know what, I'm gonna call my friend and ask him for help now, or I'm gonna call and make that psychology appointment that I've not wanted to make. Like, if it helps one person, and then that person goes and helps another person, like, that makes everything worth it, right? Like, that's
Yeah, and I
where
just
we're
I
at.
just want to tag on something there. You said the podcast isn't very big. I'm going to say yet, okay?
Yeah.
Yet.
So
See, that
Speaking
words
into
are
it,
very
speaking
powerful.
into
right,
existence,
it's
okay?
not very big yet,
Yet.
but
It's going to be huge.
I agree.
This is going to be huge,
Y'all are
okay?
fantastic.
So, just
This is
wait.
going to go
Buckle
viral,
up.
I am certain.
Yeah, no, but it is going to be huge, and just all of you wait. All of you wait and see. You will see. No, but thank you so much for being here
yeah,
today,
we
Victoria. This
appreciate
has
you
been
crossing the
awesome.
405.
Come on, Dave length. We're both Daves, and instead of having the same wavelength, we often have the same Dave length. And I was literally gonna, yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
We have to have like a Dave length cut from all the shows that we've documented. I
Yeah,
was like,
we'll
dude, that was
string
good.
them
Yeah.
together.
It'd
Yeah.
be so good.
Well, it was my honor to be here with you guys, and I think it's very important. COVID kind of got us into the groove of zooming everything, but
Mhm.
there's something that when you're in the presence of other people, that it's just a connection that you can't recreate over a screen.
Totally.
And so I made the drive for you fellas, just
And we
Totally.
appreciate it, and it's cool because we very often have remote guests, and we've had a lot of those lately, and the interviews have been great, but it is really nice to have
It's
people
much
in
different.
studio, as
Yeah.
it were, or in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And what's really fun too is that like the creative types often have their own styles and outfits, and the same way you came in with your overalls with the paint on them today that
Like
I
we wouldn't have
love.
seen that.
Like when Head Hippie came in his quilted outfit, it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, that like, and we all wanted to know like,
Yeah.
where do you
Where'd
get
you
that?
get that,
Yeah.
man? That's pretty cool.
But yeah, no, it is very cool having artists in studio, and we appreciate you crossing the 405 for us today.
And
I'm
I don't
so
know if you're
happy.
gonna Dave length on the same aspect, but the last thing I do want to touch on before we wrap this up is we were kind of talking at Beach Life Festival about your art existing how I thought it should exist in the NFT space.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you think. But
And,
go.
and it was sort of like, you know, I just saw how big it was. I saw it was cool. I felt like people would want to buy a picture of it to support the art and that whole thing. But like, I was talking to your manager,
Yeah.
right? And like, I was kind of like toying around and like, I was like, there's something here, but I don't know exactly what it is. But once I came and spoke to you, and you were kind of saying like, I want to sort of like give justice to the photographers that took these photos that I'm painting, you know, and like other artists that are involved, like the artist themselves that's being painted,
Right.
you know,
The musician. Yeah.
the musician that's being painted. So you're like, how do I connect all of this together? And like in my mind, that was like a smart contract. That is what's underneath the picture of the NFT, which I think a lot of people get lost on. Is like, or why are you buying JPEG pictures of cartoon characters? It's like there's an underlying contract that's digital that you could associate every artist, musician, photographer in your smart contract in your NFT. That would be every time somebody traded it or bought it or paid something. Let's say I bought it, you would get paid, they'd get paid. Let's say
Amazing.
I sold it to David, then
Royalties.
you would get paid again. I
That's
would
amazing.
make some money, and also the musician would get royalties, the photographer would get royalties. So if that's what made sense to me, like why you should exist. And
I don't disagree.
after hearing this conversation at the table, you could also have some of the royalties in perpetuity
Mental health services.
be related to
Yeah.
that, but also be related to your nonprofit.
Yes.
So it's
well,
like,
yeah, I
it's
give
all-
a portion of every sale to the
Yes.
to indivisible arts.
But that could
Yeah.
just be involved in the entirety of the
it would-
NFT, like the writing of it, the description, like the
Yes.
promotion, and you know, I don't want to like, you know, throw them out too hard now, but like Matt from Frogland, like I think would be able to like help us with the smart contract or like figure out how to make that work, or at least be able to direct us of how to do that ourselves, you know. But we have people that could help us think about smart contracts.
Well, this sounds brilliant to me.
I think it's amazing. And I think like while we are in a bear market and, you know, crypto's having a hard time, and like I think the technology that we're talking about, smart contracts and whatnot, is we're moving forward with that. I don't think that's going to disappear. So I think like figuring out like we don't have to launch your NFT now, but I think like getting the groundwork and thinking about, you know, reaching out to the musicians, reaching out to the photographers, and like getting those people in the contract and like the okays and figuring
Yeah,
out.
like, hey, do you want some money?
Yeah,
That's what we're
yeah.
saying to them.
And
Yes.
like, and do
Okay.
you want to like take part in this Web3 project that we're
Right.
working on?
And in the vein of reaching out and taking part, I would love to open this up to the audience now. If anyone does have any questions or comments and would like to step up, I do appreciate so much to see so many of our former Sapo guests in the
Totally.
audience.
What's up, Terrence? Got another
Shout out
surfer.
to Terrence, Lobo, Winebags. You know, even if Matt wants to step up and yell at ASAP for sharing his services, you know, whoever wants to hop up here and no, but this would be the time because you know, Victoria's been so generous with her time, and I'm sure she doesn't want to stay on this side of the 405 for too long.
and she's such a kind woman that she brought us these little gift bags.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, there's
we should
so awesome.
open those on the show.
yes,
Yeah.
open it.
Yeah,
They're
I
two
wanna
different
see.
ones.
So nice. So
Oh,
nice
and
of
we've
you.
got a request. Oh, Terrence, awesome, and Matt, great. Okay, So let's start with Terrence. Terrence, what's going on? And it's funny. Terrence is someone I was thinking of when you were talking about like embracing the things that you love. Terrence like was a corporate guy, went to South America, and just decided to be a surfing,
Live off the
like
grid
living off the grid,
producer.
living off the land music producer, and that's the
Oh,
life that
cool.
he's pursuing now.
Super inspiring guy.
Yeah.
Here,
Hey, Terrence.
Yeah, like that's half the time. The other half, I'm in Toronto with my grown up family. But I've really been enjoying this conversation. Um, I think what you're doing is freaking awesome. With those kids, and something you said. It's like I gotta move. Something that you said really rung my bell, man. You were talking about suffering and how that's something that we all have in common, and something that we can use to connect. And the reason that really rung my bell was because there are two. I've read a lot of books, but there are two that are the most memorable as far as having impact on me. One was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and the other one was Blame My Kids, or no, Blame My Brain. And I'll talk about Man's Search for Meaning. So he talked about how we're not really looking for happiness so much as we're looking for meaning in our lives, and there's three ways we can do it. You can do it by loving somebody. You can do it by building something, having a project, and the other one is finding meaning in your suffering. And I had a problem with this. I'm like, okay, how? How can you find meaning in suffering? And of course, the context for him was, surviving Auschwitz and losing his family and everything else. I mean, his suffering was unimaginable. But what you said kind of cemented it for me. That's where you find the meaning. That's the one thing that all of us have in common, and it's a way that we can connect. So I just wanted to thank you for for connecting the dots for me, man. That was awesome.
Well, yeah, and Viktor Frankl had a lot to say about how much happier we can be if we find our meaning. He coined it, logotherapy. Is that what he called it in the book? But another thing that I was talking about with someone this week, last weekend, was that success. One thing that Viktor Frankl said is that success comes precisely because we're not looking for it. Because we're just following our heart and living our life for something other than ourselves. And Muhammad Ali said something very similar, that is the key to success, that you can't be trying to be successful and like sell people what they're looking for. It's just not, it doesn't work. It's very easy when you're just following your intuition and following the call of the universe to what your heart tells you to do. And so, well, yeah, Viktor Frankl has got a lot of wisdom. And I think that what I've found in my life is that when I devoted my life to educating these children, and helping them, that I saw massive amounts of success that didn't come when I was just doing it for myself.
It's awesome. Well,
yeah. And that brings me to the second book. And the second one is Blame My Brain. And the reason that it had so much impact on me was at the time I was having difficulty understanding my teenage kids. And, I knew I was just as stupid and crazy and as they were, if not maybe more so than they were, but I still didn't understand it. And reading that book completely, it was like it freed my soul. It's like, okay, now I get it. The prefrontal cortexes aren't working, man. They don't understand consequences. They don't have breaks, and it's natural. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, I read
something.
So
anyway,
in how to change your mind. I don't know if y'all have read that book. It's all about psychedelics, but in it he says that a toddler's brain is actually just like an adult's brain if they were constantly on a hallucinogen. So like, that's how developed their brain is. Everything is brand new and nothing. You see a leaf and it like you automatically stop and you're like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because you have no memory of seeing that leaf before that moment.
Right.
We're all just striving to be three.
Yeah, and then then they turn into teenagers. And not only do they have no prefrontal cortex, but they're hyper addicted to dopamine. They just got to be high all the freaking time. They got to have sex. They got to eat junk food. They got,
Sugar.
it's like, man, it's amazing that any teenagers survive to be adults. It's phenomenal.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Terrence. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you hopping up.
Good to hear from you, man.
It's great to hear from you. I was actually just editing your episode the other day. That'll be up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts very shortly. Small shameless plug for all of the streaming services
actually,
that we're on.
Dave texted me, was saying like how good of an episode it was after he was editing.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So I'm looking forward to listening back. It's a joy to listen back to them, actually, because like I'm excited to listen back to this one to like re-inspire and relive like the things you said.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of things that just happen in the conversation that you forget. Like
not forget, but
there's so much
in the moment here that like
experiencing it again from a listener's point of view is a whole nother thing.
Yes.
But I do want to hear what Matt has to say, because Matt popped up as well. Right after ASAP offered Matt services. So how are you doing, Matt?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Quite a good conversation you got going on here. You might be surprised I didn't actually come up here to chastise you for volunteering my technical services. I actually wanted to drop another literary reference, actually. It was very interesting listening to the conversation you guys talk. And there was another book that inspired me when I was younger that I think was kind of relevant, which was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh, I just bought that book. I haven't read it, though.
Yeah, it's really, really great. When I was in university, my dad passed away very suddenly. And after, a couple of years of like soul searching, trying to figure stuff out, I stumbled across that. And, for me at that time period of like trying to find, youth identity as like, a single guy in the world, that was really, really helpful for me to, try to understand some of the different philosophies that he was trying to teach me when I was young, and how to apply those into like my adult life, and it had a pretty profound impact on me, in that time period. And it got me interested in, Eastern philosophy and religion and things like that, continues on to this day. So, that was another one I would throw out there in the mix.
I'm going to read it. I actually accidentally bought 2 copies of it. So I have 2 copies of it sitting next to my bed, which is probably just like a push from the universe that I should be definitely reading that book.
It's good. It's one, like, I think, we're talking about that change of, adolescence, around that, 16 to 22, that range. Like, it's definitely one that probably belongs on the bookshelf, I think, for just about everyone.
If you guys haven't seen the show Party Down, it's fucking hilarious. You should go check it out. There's a character that Jane Lynch plays that's very ethereal, very like she's lived quite a life of being out there and being on every drug you could ever have been on and having lived life to the absolute fullest. And there's a great story she tells, maybe even in the first episode of the show, where she talks about this cataclysmic thing that happened to her. And she goes, but a friend of mine gave me a copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and it absolutely changed my fucking life. So now that I've heard it's actually something that we should implement, I'm definitely excited to check that out.
Yeah, I feel like I need to read it as well.
Strong recommendation. It's also it's a pretty easy avenue into exploring some of the more philosophical concepts that is more built for a Western mind, I think, right? Probably a reasonable way to put it. So it doesn't seem so daunting and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Rigid, I guess, is probably a reasonable proxy, because some of that stuff is pretty dense, what I mean? It can be very difficult to find.
It's accessible, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you for that reference. Thank you for hopping up, and appreciate your time as well, Matt. All right. So we usually at this point hop into a jam session, transition into that. Are we playing music today, Dave?
Yeah, we can jam. We can like play some music.
Yeah, and transition out of this segment,
and let Victoria
let Victoria cross the 405.
Yeah.
Oh, let me not forget before
let's
we do.
Let's open these gifts.
Oh, wait, Matt, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, just real quick before you guys switch over, I'm definitely happy to talk about smart contract anytime. So
Oh,
please
fine.
reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt actually works with the Frogland team, which
Okay,
we are like
cool.
working under this whole Sapo Studios entity developed under their NFT project. And been working with them for the last couple of years going over this, year and a half or something. He's a very intelligent man, and we're lucky to be working with them. So I'm definitely excited to explore that with
Well,
you.
I'll say this one last thing that I'm having an exhibition on Thursday and Friday. And Matt, if you want to come, or if you guys want to come,
I would love to
it's
come.
at the Beach Life House.
Oh,
So I've
shit.
Matt is on the East Coast,
okay, Matt,
unfortunately.
fly in.
Yeah.
Okay, get
I
book your
would love
flight.
nothing more. Love nothing more, but we're traveling up to Boston this weekend.
No, I was just kidding. But unless you want to fly in. But yeah, and so it'll be a good taste of, and if any of the listeners, if y'all just message me on Instagram, I'll get y'all an invite. If anybody,
What's your Instagram?
It's at Victoria White Creates.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a good taste of what I do because my exhibitions are art, but they are also music. So you saw in the artist compound at Beach Life where I had painted that Elton John piano. So I painted this grand piano with Elton John. And then at my last two shows, I had these musicians sing an Elton John medley. It was really impactful and really special. And so it's very much an immersive art experience. You know, Basquiat said, art is how we decorate space and music is how we decorate time. And so like I love to incorporate all of that as my full expression of who I am as an artist, but I have just these other people that help me express it. So
When are you releasing your book of quotes? I need all of these quotes.
so anyway, y'all are invited to that on Thursday and Friday next week, and you
Awesome.
could get a taste of the music. You also have to cross the 405 the other way.
Where and when?
It's in Redondo.
Okay.
On Thursday and Friday from 5 to 9 at the Redondo.
Awesome.
And if any, I'll give
I
anyone the
shoot one of
details if
those
they're
nights, but I
interested.
definitely-
Yeah, no, I'm
Well-
gonna reach out to you about that because
Okay,
I want to go.
Yeah.
It
I wanna
should be
go.
dope.
That is awesome. Okay, so the other thing that I definitely wanted to do was open these gifts that you brought.
Yes.
And,
Oh, you're gonna
and
love
check
it.
So
that-
awesome.
I'm
those
excited.
out. So let's go ahead and see. They're in the coolest iridescent bags that have Victoria's name on them etched out. So it's super cool. Yep, you're holding them up for the camera that no one can see quite yet, but they will. Just like our show is going to be huge. It's just not yet, not yet. All right, so let me put the mic down and.
Here, I'll hold the
Oh, thank you. You're such a good guest. All right. So, yeah, Victoria's here holding up the microphone to my face. Oh, super cool. Victoria White candles. Awesome. With a QR code that I would imagine brings me to your website. Yeah. Awesome. Brilliant. Very cool. And on the back, we have Jim Morrison on this one. And it says, "Oh, great orator of creator. I'm an idiot. Oh, great creator of being, grant us one more hour to perform our art and perfect our lives." Jim Morrison. Super cool. And what does yours say over there, ASAP? Oh, and it's Jim Morrison holding a gun out towards the front of the frame.
Yeah,
Super
show it to
cool.
the camera.
Oh, right. Yeah, we do have cameras so everyone can see.
There you go. You can hold it back closer to you so it'll be in focus. Yeah, there you go.
Ah,
These are both. Here.
this is so cool.
These
Thank
are
you
bo-
so
You're
much.
so welcome. These are both very large paintings that I made. They're actually 6-foot paintings that I've put a little piece, made a little piece of something that I can give away to people from it.
So cool. Mine's Kurt Cobain. All in all is all we are.
All in all is all we are. All in all is all we are. Very cool. This is awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
I love
Thank
it,
you so much
Victoria.
for having me.
And yes,
Yeah,
everyone go to
Victoria.
victoriawhitecreates.com. If you are in the area and you do want to go to the exhibition in Redondo next Thursday or Friday, go ahead and reach out to at Victoria White Creates on Instagram, and Victoria
Drop
will
in
help
the DMs.
set that up for you. I definitely want to go, so I'm going to make that happen. It should be super cool to see painting and music happening at the same time, and the two kind of intertwining. Yeah, this has been a true pleasure. I had no idea what to expect. I was, to be honest, initially apprehensive when he told me we were going to have an artist that wasn't a musician. I was like, well, we do a music show. What? Okay.
I was like,
mean,
dude.
and he was
just-
like, no, you
just
have to meet
wait.
Victoria. It's going to be a great conversation, and it absolutely was. So thank you so much for
Well,
being here.
thank you for greeting me with openness and curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, once we were talking at the event and like how deep we were going in such a brief amount of time, I was like, I think it makes sense to invite you to my kitchen.
Well, I'm very happy to be here.
Glad you made it.
Thank you both so
Yeah,
much.
seriously. And I have the intent to come surf with you sometime. I think that'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Like I haven't
When it's
surfed.
very warm.
Yeah, I haven't surfed in a very long time, and like
You still have your bodysuit?
I do.
Oh,
I do. I
nice.
have the wetsuit, but my board broke, so I got to get a new board. But
I live right on the beach between Santa Monica and Venice, essentially, in Ocean Park.
yeah, that's
Oh, cool.
Oh, and this is cool. The World Surf League has invited me to participate in the U.S. Open in Huntington Beach
cool.
in July, at the end of July.
I'm gonna come to that too.
Woo.
That's cool. That's amazing.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's super dope.
Congratulations.
So
Thank
Terrence, if you want to come
I'm
down
honored.
to the Surf Open, man, like check out Victoria doing some art.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump in the water.
I don't know if Terrence shows up if it's not South America or Canada.
At the end of July.
Boy doesn't do cold water. I can't do it. I can't. I
It is
can't,
tough,
man.
but it's very
I'm-
good for your health.
It is. It is.
I
That's a
can't
whole
do it.
other.
I know it's good for me. I can't do it. I also eat chocolate ice cream. I can't help myself.
We forgive you, Terrence.
That's also that's a whole other podcast. But I started doing like contrast therapy, which is like going into a sauna and then going into a
I
cold
love
plunge.
it.
It's so
I
awesome.
do the sauna all the time.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the major reasons that that's a whole thing that's really good for you is because when you go into the cold plunge, all of your blood goes to your vital organs, right, to keep them warm, and then
Yeah.
when you come out, it like rushes back, so it's like a recycling and refreshing of your system.
It's one. That's one of the many.
There's nothing good about that. I did it once. That was one too many times.
Yeah, getting in the ocean, I did it every day for a year when I first moved here. And it's free cryotherapy, but
Yeah.
it's so good, so healing, so good for, especially if you get right up to your chin, like
Mhm.
so that all these glands in your throat get freezing cold.
Yeah.
I have to get past
I'd
that.
rather go to the dentist.
I have to get past that point of like freaking out and hyperventilating because, like most people, when I get into really cold water, my breath goes like this, and
See,
I
but
like
that-
literally can't
But
breathe.
that's why you
in the
should
water.
practice it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have
Practice
to
it
get
now,
past that
so
point
that if you ever do fall into freezing cold water, you don't hyperventilate and die.
Yeah.
and die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Toppy Joyce said, "Practice and all is coming."
Well, I'm gonna have to. I'm
I'm gonna have to
practice.
read that in your book of quotes.
That's right. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out some coffee table book or something because
It'll be like a perk of the NFT project.
yeah. Yeah, with every purchase, you get a coffee table book from Victoria. All right, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and transition over into a jam
I'm
session.
gonna play some
ASAP,
music
why don't you
real
play
quick.
some music? And yeah, anyone that is in the room, if you'd like to retweet the room, that would be awesome because we are going to continue rocking out. If you want to stay with us, that would be beautiful. But if you have things to do, thank you for being with us for this long. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend, and we're going to play some music.
Much love, everybody.